I'm John Travis in Novato, California on May 22nd in 2025, talking to one of my oldest friends, Bill Chase, who is in Kilauea on the island of Kauai in the state of Hawaii. And welcome, Bill. After 50 some years, I found you.
Yes, you did. It's a miracle.
And we can't remember between the two of us how I think it was me who tracked you down. I've been wondering about you. Just to for the context, Bill was part of the staff of the Wellness Resource Center, and since two of the key people have died, I'm trying to fill in all the pieces, and we'll get to that later. But first of all, who are you and why?
Well, I don't know about the second question, but I can give you some particulars. I'm Bill Chase. I'm 75 years old. I was born in Hamtramck, Michigan, which is a little town outside of Detroit. Um, uh, my dad worked for General Motors for 42 years. So he was definitely a company man, and I grew up in the Uh, I was call myself as kind of a mongrel suburban white boy. Um, I grew up in the Midwest in the 60s and 70s, and the 50s when things were relatively stable and the world seemed coherent. I talk with my cousins a lot, and we grew up in a magical time. We were safe, we had fun, um, and then things started changing.
Yeah.
So that's kind of who I am.
And say a little more about your parents. What, your mother a homemaker or she worked too?
My mom was a homemaker. She was actually kind of an artist, a beatnik type, which she let go of. Graphic design was sort of the direction she was going, but she let go of that to be a mom. And I have a sister who's 5 years younger than I am. So we had, the perfect mom, dad,
Yeah.
a boy and a girl, and family, and the nuclear family thing.
Your sister was enough younger than you that it didn't create the sibling rivalry that the two
Oh,
and a half year interval does.
oh, there was sibling rivalry to some extent for sure, and I grew up, I was the oldest son. I was the golden boy, and I can look back and see those, um, somewhat unfortunate characteristics in me. That is a kind of narcissism, and yada yada boom boom. So, and we were sort of middle class. We were not upper middle class. Uh, so it was very very conventional. Uh, luckily I went to a very very good high school. So when I went to college, initially, my first year of college was basically a review of classes that I'd done in my senior year because like that. So, and that was one of the things my mom, when we moved to Southfield, Michigan, where I grew up, um, it was because it had a really good school system, and that was really important to my mom,
Sure.
um, for which I am, forever grateful.
Where'd you go to college?
First to Michigan State. Uh, Most of my buddies went to U of M,
Uh-huh.
University of Michigan. But I was, even though I was president of the class 3 times in high school, and
Right.
all of that kind of stuff. I was extremely insecure and confused and terrified, and just didn't. U of M just seemed too scary for me.
Uh-huh.
I didn't even go to college right at the. I didn't start till the winter semester. Everybody else, we graduated from high school. There's summer, and then you go to college. That was
Yeah.
the move, and I held back from that. I ended up going because I didn't know what else to do with myself. Um, I ended up starting in the winter semester instead of the fall semester, and for that I had to go to Michigan State, which was fine. Um, and then I stumbled around there really very confused, and afraid. I was a big fish in a small pond in high school, and then when I went to Michigan State, I was a very small fish in a very big pond, and I was struggling. And it was that struggle. I dropped out of college. I began my pattern of being able to snatch defeat from the jaws of success. Um, I dropped out of Michigan State, much to the uh, consternation of my parents. Ended up in Maryland. Got into University of Maryland.
How
Uh,
did you get to Maryland? That's because that's where we met.
that right, and it was because of my continuing angst, ennui, but and confusion that I ended up getting into transactional analysis. I think I mentioned to you I ran into Valerie Langford at a little public service presentation she was doing someplace, um, and I was just very strongly drawn to her warmth and her compassion. And she invited me to go to a group therapy session, which I
Yeah,
went because I was young. I didn't know, you know, and my
Valerie,
God, it changed my life.
Valerie was central to my life too. We'll come
Yeah.
back and spend some more time with her, but just what actually pulled you to Baltimore, which some people call the armpit of the East Coast?
Oh yeah, it was. After I dropped out to college, I moved to a place that's even worse than Baltimore, um, uh, Buffalo, New York,
Oh,
uh, in the middle of the winter because I had a buddy who was very active. He was a young budding intellectual theorist type. I was very involved with Ayn Rand and objectivism and that kind of
right.
very conservative political points of view. And this guy, um, and everybody was politically conscious in one way or another back in the day, right? I mean, this was when SDS was having marches, and there was a lot of stuff going on. And so any he was there. I moved there. He moved to Silver Spring because there was a place. Oh, there was a magazine called Reason Magazine, which I think still exists in one incarnation or another. And that was the headquarters. So I just sort of followed him because I didn't know what I was doing with my life. I just landed there, you know, and I ended up meeting, hanging out with this guy Carl Hess, who was the speechwriter for Barry Goldwater, right? But who became a member of the Black Panthers
Hmm.
and was encouraging Barry Gold. He said, Barry, if this is what you believe, these are the people doing it. You're in the wrong camp, man. This is where it's happening. Would you? I mean, yeah, it was a very interesting time. So anyway, that's how I ended up in Maryland and met Valerie, and that's then because Valerie and I at that time I was going to the University of Maryland. I'd re-enrolled University of Maryland, um, the College Park campus, uh, and but Valerie was based in Baltimore, so I moved to Baltimore because I wanted to be closer to this TA community that she was growing around her, right?
Yeah,
There was a community there, and that's what I was missing. I mean, I didn't formulate it that way at the time, but that's what I was missing. There was some sense of family and
for
safety and
yeah.
belonging, and that's what she created.
And then a lot of us created on our own, like at Ruth and Tony Zina's house. I still remember uh, people piles, and they had taken all the dining room furniture out of the dining room, and but we could dance in there, and that's where I
This
saw
was
Dylan
this
quote.
was the days we
Yeah,
we were in our own ways those wild, crazy hippies.
yeah,
This was the days of Esalen, and it was very intoxicating.
right. So you and I met in a group, I'm guessing, and
Yeah,
then we both and my ex-wife went into training with Valerie to become clinical members of the ITAA, International Transactional Analysis Association. So I had a medical license, so I could practice and include you and my ex-wife, and you
yep.
and Sarah did a group, and Sarah and I did a group, and you did one with a fourth person. So we were running what, three groups among the four of us,
Right.
um, and getting training and still going to Valerie's marathons, and it was a magical time and very important for my growth anyway, because I was practically suicidal at the early stages of that, from
Yeah.
having given birth to a child who I was totally unprepared for, and my later work on how having children destroys marriages. And we only lasted
Uh-huh.
2.5 years, but my daughter would, as a baby, would come to the groups, and so we were, yeah, the good old days.
That
Um,
was the good old days. It was, and that to me that was kind of an extension of the 50s in the sense that there was still a deep sense of optimism and
yeah,
confidence
yeah.
in the future and the possibility of society and changes in the air. And, that's, I mean, at least in the world that I live in now, that's kind of hard to find.
Mhm. So then I went off to California to start my wellness center. You stayed on and did a
I
master.
stayed on. I graduated from I transferred from University of Maryland College Park, the main campus, to University of Maryland Baltimore campus to be around Valerie. Finished my BA there in psychology. Um, Enrolled, and because of TA, it was like, okay, now I have a direction. I'm going to become a therapist. I mean, up until then, I was kind of like sort of I didn't really know what my major would be. I'd get in psychology because I was popular in school and I like people. Okay, I'll get a psych degree, right?
Yeah.
But with TA, it was like, wait a minute, there's something here. I was working part time at a private mental institution, Shepherd Pratt, which is in Baltimore, which was an amazing experience for me. And if you're going to go crazy, you want to go to some place like Shepherd Pratt because it's pretty cushy, right? But I got exposed to a lot of things that I would not have just in a regular TA training kind of concept. Um, and then after I got my BA, you left, but I enrolled in the University of Maryland School of Social Work to get a master's because it was getting a master's degree was sort of in social work was kind of the shortest route to being able to be credentialed
Mhm.
independently on my own to do therapy.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to go. I had enough of a sense that to get a PhD, to get a doctorate, um, the academic world at that point was very behavioral. Um, Behavioral still is, but it was not people centric.
Yeah.
And social work degrees, I didn't sort of like where social workers were plugged into the medical hierarchy, but it would get me that degree.
Yeah.
And there were a couple of people, I forget their names, who kind of took over Valerie's practice because she kind of started pushing the boundaries and getting a little bit out of control. And there were two therapists, a husband and wife, and he was the dean of the School of Social Work at U of M, University of Maryland. Um,
Didn't know this at all. This was after I left.
this was after you left, yeah. So I was on the track to become a therapist, and some of the other friends I made, Wendell. I don't know if you remember Wendell Cox.
Very well. Yeah.
Yeah. So Wendell went on into University of Chicago, got his PhD, and he's a been practicing as a therapist in Washington D.C. forever.
Oh, I'd love to track him down.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
and his girlfriend, Susanna Nicolai.
Susanna, they separated,
Right.
and she moved on. But yeah, she was a total
Yeah.
character trip.
Ah. Oh, I remember Wendell spending nights over at his place. What a guy.
Oh yeah, yeah, very very elegant, urbane
Yeah.
guy. Interestingly, from Detroit.
Uh-huh.
Um, However, uh, I mean, I lived in the white suburbs right next to Detroit. He lived in Detroit, but his family was fairly well to do. His dad had a series of radio broadcast stations around the Midwest, which I think, and I haven't verified this, but I think there is a big conservative. It's probably been taken over, and changed a bit, but I mean, Wendell was black, right? So this
Yeah.
was like a black radio network around the Midwest. I think because of the name, there is a broadcasting company called Cox
Yeah.
Broadcasting Company.
In-
I think that's a derivative or an incarnation
Oh,
of Wendell's dad's
interesting.
broadcast. I'm not sure of that.
Well,
But
anyway,
I can get Wendell, like you. Wendell is on my bucket list of guys that I want to connect up with, before they die or before I die, to have this kind of a conversation.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm off in California. You're pursuing your master's, and it was probably the second, or I'm not even sure what summer, but we were starting to get some traction, uh, having more clients and growing my staff. And we had a big hole with the fitness part because I hate exercise. And I had actually worked with a woman who did some of it, but she was a little wild and crazy. And I thought, well, maybe you. Um, and so I called you up and said, you want to come out for the summer and take it from there? What happened?
Well, I was had finished my first year at MSW school. It was summertime. I was looking at, and I didn't really enjoy it. There's a lot of classes on federal policy and
Yeah.
housing rules and all that kind of stuff. And I'm going, oh God, I hate this. I hate this. I hate this. Um, and I'd gotten my master's thesis was going to be with the head of the Department of Pediatric Oncology at Johns Hopkins. I'd done some work at Hopkins in
Mhm.
various things over the years. Um, but again, whenever I was on the verge of success and really becoming something, I would bolt.
Mm.
And I was in that mode when you called, and I went, oh, going to California? Okay. To hang out with, here's somebody I know. Um, it would certainly be a situation that I believed in, that had some heartful connection to. And I felt I had a certain level of skill to contribute. I didn't think I was really ready, but I said, sure, why not? So I pulled the plug and dropped out of school again and came to California, the wild and crazy, and it was the wild and crazy California scene.
It totally was. And I didn't fully appreciate it until this book, The Well-Beings, How the 70s Lost Its Mind, and I forgot the second half, took responsibility, all of the change, and credited our work at the center. And we were just making it up as we went along. And
Yep.
he credits us for having created one of the first models for self-responsibility in health, which was
Hmm.
good to see. What's interesting, I was just thinking about this. Before you came, it was just me and Linda Berkeley, my biofeedback practitioner, and then Ken Maui came along. Was Ken still there when you were there?
I don't think so. No.
Um, we were having
It's
problems,
12 o'clock.
and uh, we hired a family therapist who did a constellation with us, and it turned out I was the daddy and they were the kids, and I didn't want that, and they didn't want that. And
Right.
so we changed the whole thing, and that's when we began our family meetings on Fridays. And uh,
Uh-huh.
uh, that both Ken and Linda left, and that's when I think uh, I called you up, and Pam showed up, and
Pam, yep.
Michael Baker. Well, no, Michael came after Pam, I think, and he's another one I've lost. Anyway. You showed up and tell me what it was like when you arrived and what did you think of, because I want to describe as much of the center from your memory as what we were doing and what it was like.
Well, it was culture shock to say the least. I mean, I'm a a Midwestern white boy, and then doing some formative stuff on the East Coast, which is a very different cultural feel, and in university settings or jobs at Shepherd Pratt or at I did various jobs at I worked at Johns Hopkins for a while when they closed down their School of Nursing and opened up the first physician's assistant program in the United States. I was a
Really?
research assistant in that thing. Yeah, way back. But it was it's a very structured hierarchical kind of environment.
Yeah.
And as you're describing with the Wellness Resource Center, and in California, it's all about egalitarian and we're all equal and it's horizontal. It's not vertical, right? And experimenting, trying to figure out what does that mean? How do you do that?
Hmm.
Um, and I think in the 21st century, it's the conversation is like working from home or not, and the corporations are telling people, no, you got to come back into the office. This thing of you have too much freedom out there. So, but I think we were wrestling with similar issues then on a small scale.
Yeah.
Um, so for me, it was um, very confusing as to how are we going to get anything done here. Somebody has to, like in Valerie's world, Valerie kind of set the pace. She was the
Mom.
was playing the flute, and we were all dancing along, following her and having a good time. So she was the mom, right? Um,
Really good
and
parenting that we were.
I mean, like explicitly was doing that, and whereas coming out to California, um, you were the one who was supposed to be the dad. You were supposed to be the Harry Rose of the
Yeah.
situation, right? But you were and I think this had to do with you personally, and the challenges you were having raising Hannah and being a dad and all of that personal stuff. You were very clear. I'm not doing that, right? But the question is, how do we then come to that agreement, that focus that this is the way we're going, and then all fall into that. And I found it difficult because I mean I kind of wanted to be told what to do, and then I'll go out and do it 110%. But I need somebody to decide it. Here's the context. Here's the boundaries. Here's the playground. Um, which is kind of what I understand. One of the things a father figure does is kind of sets that. So the Wellness Resource Center was struggling to create a different model.
Yeah, and for me personally, it was actually that session, or we did 2 or 3 sessions with this family therapist, where it became clear to me that I had been cast myself as the dad and
Uh-huh.
didn't realize it. So I was detoxing myself in the process, and it was
Hmm.
a beautiful cooperative process. I think Bobby and Joy were crucial to that.
Absolutely.
Uh, Bobby, who was hired as my secretary, turned out to know more nutrition than me. So I quickly promoted her to one of the facilitators. And then her ability to organize things and to really, in a sense, was a mom, but very egalitarian. Uh,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
really
She was a
co-created.
mom, kind of like Valerie was a mom. That I mean, Valerie had this sort of impish sparkle about her that even though she could be in charge and in control, she really felt like your playmate,
Yeah.
and that was her brilliance, actually. I mean, as a therapist. And Bobby had elements of that for sure.
I never made that comparison, but you're right. And but we were self-organizing and uncovering something that 50 years later got written up in a book and referenced 200 times. It's like,
Wow.
wow, took 50 years. And I didn't even recognize it till I read about the context all along with Sarah McFadden's The Serial. Do you remember that? What was going on in
I never read it, but we were there doing it, kind
yeah,
of.
it got mentioned in the book, not in the Martin Mull called the movie the worst best movie, best worst movie ever.
Yeah.
Hard in it. But that was a mockery of the whole New Age thing. She was
Hmm.
at a grocery store when the butcher asked her if she could relate to a pork roast, and she was so taken by his language that she decided to
Yeah.
spoof the whole thing, and it was every week in the Pacific Sun and eventually a book. So,
Yeah. And it was hilarious and it was right on.
yeah. And she got so much hate mail and attacks at her tires slashed. She had to move out of Mill Valley. The
Oh, really? Oh, I
early,
didn't know that.
yeah. Um, I listened to her oral history. The Mill Valley Library has an oral history of Mill Valley, and she's got a record.
Uh-huh.
She died last year. I'm sorry I didn't get to know her, but yeah, it was lack of sense of humor and these serious woke people.
It's a serious deficit for
Yeah.
sure.
Anyway, so you were doing fitness with folks and anything else? I'm trying because you were
Well,
out on.
yeah, I was doing more the physical side of things. You need more exercise. You need to, and you need to connect more to your body. Your body is not a conceptual, an abstract construct in your head that you manipulate from your head, out into your body is you. You got to live in your body, um, which is to me was an analog to the whole transactional analysis model. And one of the things that Eric Byrne said that I thought was profound and never, TA was joked about quite a bit as well, because it was as sort of a simplification or a dumbing down of Freudian models because it was a tripartite model and all that. But Eric Byrne was saying, no, no, no. The parent is not analogous to the superego because the superego is an abstract concept that we talk about. The parent structure in a human being is a phenomenological reality. It's
Mhm.
a physical, you can touch parts of the brain and you can stimulate those memories. You can, the Penfield uh, thing in the 50s, where, those things exist physically in human beings. And that's what transactional analysis. You can see when a person slips into their superego or into their child. Their body language changes. You can
Mhm.
see it. And for me, that was the whole thing about all the new age mumbo jumbo that was flying fast and furious everywhere. It's like, no, 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 folks, this your body is you. You need to connect with that. And here are some exercises to help. And here are some things to get your whole physical system going. And it will impact directly, will impact your mental health. It will directly, those two things, it was, what the previous term was holistic health. Well, that's
Mhm.
not just a trendy idea that you folks in Porsches are coming around, learning the latest psychobabble. It's a real, which was happening all over the place in the 70s, right? Particularly in California, Northern California. But this is the real thing. It's yeah. So that's kind of that was the frame of. But what did I do? I took people running, took people on sort of body awareness kinds of things,
Yeah.
and then pointed them to nutrition and pointed them to more talk therapy kinds of experiences.
Now you'd take them out on the trails on Mount Tam or the streets or
Took them on the trails and mountain. Well, depending on their uh, what they came in with, that's where the wellness inventory
Mhm.
was important for people to start taking stock of themselves and evaluating where they thought they needed to make some improvements, where they thought they needed to have some coaching, so to speak, and then you would tailor a program for them based on their self-described needs, and then I would be a subset of that.
Mhm.
Maybe it's just going for a walk.
Yeah.
Maybe going for a jog up Mount Tam wasn't quite what was called for. You
Yeah.
know.
Do you remember any clients from those days, like Cissa Kelly or John Kelly? They ring any bells? I don't know what your memory is like because I got to know Cissa really well later on, and uh,
No, the Kellys, I don't remember.
yeah, then uh, as we were growing and uh, we got up to 13 staff at one point, and
Wow.
I was burnt out. And we kept looking for someone to do the administrative work that fell on me and I wasn't good at and didn't like. And
Oh, a losing combination.
yeah, I remember we had two people come in, um, neither of which worked out. One was named Dave, uh, and then the one I remember was Roger something, and we'd actually taken a rented a space over a couple blocks away that was becoming the administrative space, and that's where he was going to be. And then there was this big um, schism in the staff of Roger was into being a dad and he wanted to be the boss, and uh, most of the core folks that had come in with me or earlier were resisting that. We had forgot to mention on Fridays we would have a 2 hour family meeting and then often
Hmm.
together. And that's where we really built the community, modeling it on what happened with Valerie,
Hmm.
the TA community. And so Roger wasn't into that. And it was very clear that, basically, Bobby came down and said, it's either him or me. And
Hmm.
uh, we struggled for a while. I don't remember how long. Uh, and then, as I recall, you sided with the Roger crew and kind of disappeared. Uh, do you
Mm.
remember that? How did
Well,
it end for you?
well, I remember being frustrated. Um, like you say, things were growing, growing quickly, and feeling things were very disorganized. And this is again, this is me coming from an academic background on the East Coast, right? And it's like,
By my
right, and
standards, they were disorganized. Yeah.
yeah, and I just I do remember going, we're we're going in circles, and somebody needs to throw a thread in there and just start pulling the whole ball of chaos in some direction, so that there's some kind of a thread that's bringing this all together. And I don't remember Roger per se, but I remember thinking this is necessary for this group right now. I don't know who that would be or how, maybe there were stylistic differences. Um, and administration is, I mean, I don't like administration either. I think it's the death, institutionalizing things is kind of the death of the spontaneity. And it's also necessary for an organization to exist through time,
And really,
you
what
know?
we grew too fast, too big, and were unprepared for that. We needed a nervous system that we didn't have.
That's a good analogy. Yeah.
We downsized at that point, and we never really had the staffing. I mean, the clientele to even break even. I had to make up the difference with the speaking engagements. That's what it
Hmm.
got was a lot of national attention through the articles in Prevention Magazine and New West. So I was something I'm not even good at public speaking with. Oh, no, not me. And
Right. Right.
I ended up using two slide projectors, and that was my crutch. But it did bring in enough money to keep the center going. And then by late '79, I became aware of this is just burning me out. And we went
Hmm.
to center, and Marin and I moved to Costa Rica in 1980. And uh,
Hmm.
that was the rise and fall of the Wellness Resource Center.
Well, yeah, and it's interesting that but it was at the right place at the right time, right? As they said in Est, which was also a big thing back then, right? And maybe this was a quote from someplace else. A lot of the Est quotes were, but it was an idea whose time had come.
No, I don't remember that.
Yeah, no, I think, and I think that's an accurate description.
Yeah.
Um, and once something gets picked up by the media,
Yeah.
it has this media existence and reality that if you look closer at the actual thing down below, maybe it's not quite what it's hyped up to be. But
No.
but everybody wanted that message at that point. So boom, it took off.
What happened was when Dan Rather interviewed us in 79, he opens the piece saying, wellness. Now, there's a word you don't hear every day. And it was true. We had to spell wellness when we answered the phone for some people. But then, because of that piece and who knows what else, Don Ardell's
Wow.
uh, promoting wellness in the hospital system, wellness became, you know,
It went viral,
yeah, it did, and it
essentially.
completely lost the meaning that we had for it, which is based on how brains work, and became
Right,
equated with all the holistic rigmarole that, from colonics to dog food. But
right.
well, yeah, the idea whose time had come. So what did you do after things wound down, or before that? What recollections do you have of interactions with the staff since um, Bobby's gone and Pam's gone? And did you have much interaction with the other staff personally?
Mostly it was Bobby, Pam, and Joy.
Uh-huh.
I mean, that's who I remember. Interestingly, and I don't know if there's any deep psychological meaning to this, or maybe it was just the timing, but I don't remember the men that
Well,
that
there weren't
came
any.
in and out. There, okay,
Well, Michael came to do biofeedback after Pam. Um,
uh-huh. So that might have been, I mean, that might have been after things started slowing down, or were simmering for a while, and I might have drifted off, and then he might have come in.
so what was your relationship like with Bobby since we don't have her directly?
Oh,
What did you think of her and how
well,
did you?
just very friendly. Um, I was. Uh, I mean, we were kind of ships going in the same direction, but she was easy to be with, easy to work with. If I had questions, I could about what's going on with this, what about this, what about that. She was there,
Yeah,
and she had answers. Um, so I just remember her big smile,
yeah.
right? I mean, she was a warm, kind of effusive person.
I don't think we would have survived without her. It was
No,
total.
probably not.
Uh,
Probably not. Somebody uh was in that mothering, keep track of everything, um sort of mother hen putting the wing out to shelter the little chickies that are running around. Um
I'm just thinking
uh
of the magic of what are called synchronicities by Carl Jung, but there's a book out by a guy in Charlottesville called Meaningful Coincidences that's a watered
oh,
down term for that, and how the more you look for them, the more they occur. And we had a lot of them that I didn't even recognize at the time, but one of the big ones would have been, well, you coming back out and Bobby, who Kenneth picked out five people. He interviewed people for his secretary, and he picked her, and I interviewed her, and it was like immediate that she
hmm,
was, and she was so shocked because she saw the other people's credentials later on in the file,
aha.
was shocked that it was her. So her humility was a big part of our changing from a dominator medical model to the partnership model. And of course, coaching wasn't a term that you used outside of a football field.
That's
Uh,
right.
I think it was Werner and maybe the incarnation of Est into the forum, but that's where I first heard the term. And of course, Bobby was big into that. She'd worked on Werner's houseboat, and she knew all the Est stuff, although she was put off by the dominating aspect of that too. But she
Yeah.
was the first wellness coach ever, and
Oh, really?
we didn't
Oh,
even
I
call.
didn't know that.
She was a wellness facilitator was the term we used, but it really was the coaching model. So, and Joy, what was your, you probably didn't see as much of her.
Yeah, I didn't see as much of her. She was doing the L. Ron Hubbard.
Well, actually, it was Jack Horner, Eductivism. Hubbard and
Uh-huh.
Horner were colleagues, and they developed the model, and Hubbard turned it into a religion, and Horner did.
Uh-huh.
And so
Uh-huh.
it was common database, but a whole different structure. So
Oh, interesting.
in order to get, there was a particular book that we like to use called How to Choose Your People, and it was only available in Dianetic bookstores. And if
Uh-huh.
we had to get more copies of it, we'd draw straws of who was going to have to go into the Dianetic bookstore to get this book, to run the gauntlet of the.
Right. And I remember, my reaction to a lot of that again, coming from a what looks back then sort of a stuffy East Coast perspective. And I was young, I was very insecure, and I covered it over with being arrogant. And um, I thought this Dianetics thing or whatever that was, and going over things very precisely and all, I just thought that was uh, just ridiculous. Nobody's going to ever change or grow or learn anything doing that. But hey, it's part of this thing called the Wellness Resource Center, and part of the deal here is that we are deliberately and explicitly looking for things outside those standard models.
Mhm.
That's part of what we're doing here, and that's part of why it's hard and why it's confusing, because it new ground is being broken,
Yeah. And
right?
just a note on what Joy did is that Dorothy Youngward, who wrote the bestseller Born to Win, remember that was the TA book.
Hmm.
I met her through, I tracked her down through the ITAA conference and actually did a couple of workshops with her. Somehow or
Hmm.
other, she came over to the center and was so taken with Joy's work that she would drive an hour from East Bay to do counseling with Joy,
Really?
doing educativism. And
Wow.
Joy was really good at it. Um,
Hmm.
but given all of her psychological experience, the fact that she picked that out was a real uh, plus. Joy,
Yeah.
actually,
And
go
when
ahead.
I look back, my arrogance, as arrogance generally does, worked against me. I could have probably learned a lot more and grown as a person had I been more open to some of these other things, right? I mean, biofeedback was a slam dunk for me. I love that,
Yeah.
right? Uh, but this Dianetics thing or est is like, oh my God. But
Did you do Est? How did you know that quote?
oh well, who I married, the
Oh,
woman I married wrote. She worked directly with Werner Erhard for years and wrote a lot of that awful est language.
oh,
She was the first editor of The Shift in the Wind, their internal magazine. And I didn't do est for years until and I said, no, this is just bullshit. This is like warmed over philosophy 101, and he's an arrogant prick. I'm not going to that. This is Nazi. I'm not doing that. But anyway, I ended up doing one because Mary got her mom to do it. And I
uh,
said, if you can get your mom to do it, I'll do it with her. And I went for the first, and she did it. Son of a bitch, she did it. Because I mean, the thing about the S thing was they did get stuff done.
Yeah.
They were they were a little bit brutal about it, and crude and bullying and all that. But I went to the first weekend and then didn't go back. I said, no, this is stupid. I'm not doing it.
Uh-huh.
And they harassed me for like 6 weeks afterwards to come back. And I said, no, I'm not doing it. And I didn't know that about Bobby, that she'd been in that
Yeah.
world as well. Because I mean, it did I think it did do a lot of good for a lot of people
Yeah.
in terms of self-responsibility. Take responsibility for the words you say, take responsibility for your health. Just don't go to Big Daddy Doctor and take a pill.
Yeah.
Think about it.
I'm guessing that Mary would have known Bobby. Uh, was she
They
on the
might
you
have. Wouldn't that be ironic?
ask Mary if you get a chance. Can you
Yeah.
that her name was Barbara well, I think she had changed it to Burdette. I don't think she's she would have known her as Barbara for sure, but I think Burdette was a made-up name that she changed. Yeah, it was Mc something or other. It was an Irish name. Oh, well, this is test.
It was Mech something, actually,
Yeah,
now that you mention.
yeah, it was McNeil. McNeil pulled that one out.
Well, this thing about age and memory,
Yeah,
my shtick on that is it's not that our memory gets bad. It's just that the processing speed is the same as when we were 20. We just have a database that's like three orders of magnitude
yeah,
deeper. So it takes a little longer to go down into the stacks and bring it back up.
exactly. Yeah,
Our memory's fine.
yeah. Um, so you've we've wound up the center. Well, anything you want to say about Pam or
Well,
Michael?
and Pam, um, I remember Pam as just being like this Earth Mother,
Yeah,
right? And wanting and really having more of the therapy depth. Uh, oh, I do remember being hurt, emotionally, ego and emotionally hurt and disappointed when, one of the my ideas of coming out to California was because you and Sarah and I had done groups and stuff together, that I would be one of the guys, one of the people doing some of the therapy groups. That was kind of part of the deal, or in my mind. When it came down to it, in the various assignments of who's doing what, which was like this constantly shifting thing there. And Pam came in. Um, I don't think I ever did any kind of group therapy things at the Wellness Resource Center.
didn't have any. We didn't use the term therapy for one. They signed a contract of I don't diagnose, treat, or prescribe, but I did translate it into what I called the lifestyle evolution group, where we used TA, but it wasn't about fixing problems. It was about expanding and growing. And I don't remember that I even had a co leader. If it did, it would have probably been Bobby. And it never really took off.
Mm,
I can remember Gay Raymond and Roy Raymond were in it. We did a retreat up at they had a house up in Fort Bragg.
mm.
Well, that was anyway. So no, there wasn't any therapy per se, um,
What was
but
Pam doing?
biofeedback, and she was probably therapizing people more than I realized because that was
Yeah. Well,
uh,
that was the model that, again, that was kind of the model that we all knew.
yeah.
And so it's, well, the relanguaging of it um, was reaching for doing similar things, but doing them fundamentally differently at the same time. And I think that exploration was part of the reason it was hard to get a handle on sort of the business end, and what the Wellness Resource Center is and does, because there were so many conceptual changes to understanding what we're doing, um, that it was hard to make it all coherent.
Hmm.
It's like, well, oh, I came out there, I wanted to do TA groups. That's what I knew how to do. I had some experience and confidence in that. But it's like, oh, no, 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 that's because that's in the therapy model. We can't be doing that. Oh, okay, well then what am I doing? You know? Um, but that's the danger. If you're really out on the edge and beyond, there's a great Rumi quote, about sort of being beyond all the conceptual things. There's a field, and I'll meet you
Right.
there.
Yeah. Me too.
Beyond
That.
language is the famous quote,
Right.
right? So when you're beyond the words, and the words are the things that you've always used to describe what you're doing, where are you,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And and then you go viral. You start speaking places, and you're throwing something out there because everybody else is looking for that same thing,
Hmm.
and you're the one who started saying it, you know so my memory of Pam was that she was, just a powerful presence, very grounded, um, and yeah, I mean, I would was hoping we'd like do therapy groups together or something. We could do something like that, but it just never evolved that way. And that's where I was kind of like, um, I didn't remember that, I sided with the guy who came in and said, we got to get organized, and I'm going to be the boss, and I'm going to be the dad, and blah blah. I don't remember that hardly, except I do remember feeling like we needed something like that.
Now, were you participating in the Friday night groups? You must have been.
Yeah.
They just started up when you came. I'm not even sure which year you came in, but I'm guessing it was 77 or 78.
Well, you had just moved to the old brown store, or no, you were in the old brown store.
No, we were next door to Old Brown's. We're in the,
Oh, yeah, 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 right, next door to it. Which I mean, that was one of my experiences. Like, wow, this is incredible. It was such a beautiful spot.
yeah, well, we must have been there a year at least because Linda and Ken and I were there alone for a good year. Uh,
Uh-huh.
but anyway, you came in and it's the family meetings that I'm curious what your take on that was. Did it?
I think that's where some of my frustration came, because it felt like we were going in circles, and what we needed was some, I mean, a new age term. We needed some grounding, and we weren't getting that with those things.
Well, to me, it was a TA therapy group, only we weren't calling it that.
Right.
And I thought it created a bonding and connection amongst us. You might have come in later as things were falling apart. Uh,
That might have been. uh, yeah, that's probably true, because I didn't feel that level of bonding, say, with Bobby. I mean, I appreciated her very much. Um, but I did, I was coming into something rather than being.
and I'm guessing that a lot of our discord came up in that group. That would have been where we dealt with what are we going to do. So
Yeah.
yeah, hadn't remembered that either. So anything else on the center before we move to the next chapter of your life?
No, it was an interesting kind of, for me, it was just an interesting launching pad. Um, and I didn't, hindsight, I wish I'd gotten more involved in the organizational structure, and sort of did whatever necessary to make it, filled in whatever blanks needed to be filled in to keep it going. Um, but I left that to you.
Yeah, and it wasn't going to keep going because
Yeah.
it was a bit off more than I could chew, but it gave me the
Well, I think you grabbed a
experience.
tiger by the tail,
Yeah, I did.
right?
Yeah. So what did you do next?
I worked. I had made friends with a neighbor. You know, I was living in downstairs of George Leonard's house. He had a
Forgot
little
to.
rental unit downstairs, and I was living down there, and you know, that was kind of my connection, very, you know, low level tangential connection to the Esalen community.
Uh-huh.
That's how I ran into Mike Spino, how I got to know, you know, I ended up house sitting for Mike and Dulcie Murphy from time to time.
Oh,
Um, and that's a whole different, you know, uh, speaking of wild and crazy. But you know, that was, so I needed a job, and the next door neighbor was dating a guy, Rick Levine, Dr. Rick Levine, who is a psychiatrist, and he was building a house in Mill Valley. So I ended up working as a laborer. You know, I mean, as the Wellness Resource Center unwound, I was going, oh my God, what am I going to do?
yeah.
Um, I don't really have any real world skills. I've got somewhat of an education. I don't want to go back to academia. I don't want to go back and get a master's degree. I'm not doing that. What do I do? You know, it was kind of an existential crisis. So I ended up being a working as an assistant to this alcoholic Okie carpenter who was building a house for this psychiatrist guy. And I was out, you know, doing hard physical manual labor, and I enjoyed it. I went, so that's what I'm going to do for a while.
Where was the house? I'm curious.
Um, it was not. I could probably, if I were back there, I could probably feel my way toward it on the windy roads. It wasn't in Blythedale Canyon. It was kind of on the other side of Mill Valley.
Oh, the
Um,
strawberry side across the
and,
freeway.
and it was up. It was kind of, it was up high in
Uh-huh.
ways. But anyway, so I did that, and I ended up and I it sort of played into my, you know, snatch failure from the jaws of success mode, was that I said, you know, this whole experience at the Wellness Resource Center has convinced me that I'm personally not ready. I don't have the emotional depth or the emotional sophistication to step into the role of being somebody's therapist. I don't know enough yet. And I haven't been tempered. And that was one of the things, dealing with the variety of people who were coming through the Wellness Resource Center. That I mean, they're sitting here looking to me for advice or for information. They're twice my age, three times my age, have world experience beyond anything I even knew existed, and I'm sitting here giving them advice. Uh-uh. You know, it just doesn't feel right. And if I could do that within the umbrella of, say, a TA framework or a Rogerian framework, or you know, whatever, Fritz Perls, but you know, I didn't know how to do Gestalt, that's for sure. Um, but if I could do it within some kind of a framework where I sort of had a sense of, but I didn't have that. And so I just said, you know, I'm going to leave this now, go off into the world, get some experience, and maybe by the time I'm 50 or 60, I'll have the oomph, the gravitas to come back and heal people, help people heal themselves, give them some wisdom that they can take home and nurture. So I left. I
Mm.
left, you know, the whole, I mean, it's always part of me, but I left that as a way of making my way in the world and putting food on the table, you know.
Then you met Mary and got married and had a kid and
Yeah, yeah. Did all that. I
how
mean,
soon?
I was a carpenter for a while. I had some interesting one of anyway, one of the projects I was involved in was a a pot farm up in Lake County. And I had been building a guy's house. It was really fun. He bought a couple of old redwood barracks from Fort. What was that fort that's right on the point overlooking the Golden Gate Bridge?
Uh, Baker's one of them, but
Fort Baker, and right there, they were tearing down old army barracks that were made of first growth redwood.
yeah,
I
wow.
mean, 2 by 12s. Just, I mean, and as a carpenter, it's like, whoa, this is like beyond gold. This is
Yeah.
unbelievable. And he dismantled these barracks, put them in the front yard of his house, which was in Mill Valley, and said, "We're building a second story out of this stuff." And I went, "Oh my goodness!" So I mean, it was great fun. Um, but he was involved in the pot farm. So and our operation was pretty cutting edge at the time, and we were on the cover of High Times magazine
Ah,
even. But that was, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So I became a pot farmer. I mean, I never smoked. I never got into the drug scene. It was more like I'm living outside. It was a whole different thing. And that's when I met Mary. She was a, you know, uptown, Duke graduate, Harvard graduate, um, did cotillion, page for a senator from North Carolina, and said, "That's my kind of girl." And we got married and had kids, and da 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 da. Ended up in uh, Hawaii, you know.
where did you actually meet? In Mill Valley or in Lake
Yeah,
County?
we met the same guy, the psychiatrist whose house I had worked on early on, became a friend. And I enjoyed spending time with Rick because even though I was being a carpenter, my heart and my a lot of my growth was still had
Yeah.
a psychological frame of reference, and he had a very different kind of approach. But we got along. We could talk the same language, kind of. But I went to a party at his house in Mill
Mm,
Valley, and
wow.
Mary was part of that tribe, um, and she actually picked me up. um, we went home together that night, and I never left.
Wow.
We ended up getting married.
What
Yeah, it
is
was I had yeah. So anyway, that's a whole nother story. But
was this like mid early 80s?
yeah,
I would be in Costa Rica at that point. Yeah.
yeah, you had kind of disappeared.
I fled the scene.
Yeah, you fled the scene,
Um,
and I think you were ahead of the curve there because Costa Rica became kind of a place for expats and like a friendly,
yeah.
right?
Well, I thought when Reagan got elected and the US was bankrupt, it was all going to crash in
Hmm.
1980. And here we're still plugging along with the same predictions. That's why I don't take them so seriously anymore. But
Yes, yes.
uh, so your kids, who and how many?
I have two boys. Both are adopted. Mary and I, in spite of our best efforts, could not get pregnant, and we did a lot of research and whatever's on that. And fertility science was pretty new and still growing then, and they just said, she was 39, she'd never had kids, and they said, and both of us, from a mechanical standpoint, everything's fine. We're very healthy. It's just your body has never done that, and it's just doesn't know quite what to do.
Mhm.
So after we didn't do Pergonal, but we did in vitro a few times, and we were on the cover of Look magazine because we tried all. Yeah, they did we got flown to New York and we're on the CBS morning show. We were the infertile couple of the year.
Really?
Yeah. Um, uh, so I wanted to get cast in the movie, but they cast Ted Danson instead, and I said that's not fair. Um,
There was a
so
movie. Oh, what was it?
Well, there was a movie about something about adoption and him being a dad, and the infertility thing was trendy for a while. It went viral for a while, just like wellness had its moment, its 15 minutes of fame, and then it keeps going in a kind of a diluted fashion. and spreads out more and more into the culture. Um, yeah. So anyway, we ended up. Mary wrote a couple of art because she's a writer. She's a good writer. She wrote an article that was in the San Francisco Chronicle. Somebody from Look saw it. They came out and did a spread on us. We were one of three couples. We were the California Crazies. Um, uh, but our goal was to have a family. So it was like, okay, we're not going to probably have a biological child, so we look into adoption. And Mary wrote a book called Waiting for Baby. It was published by McGraw-Hill, and it was
Really?
our story. How we said, the goal is to have a family, so we got into the adoption thing, um, and because we were older, conventional adoption venues were not open to us. We were just categorically dismissed.
Oh.
So we started exploring open adoption, which was again kind of a new thing then. Um, and we ended up with two beautiful, wonderful sons.
And
I
how
mean,
did you get them? Like open adoption means that they don't go through an agency. It's like a person that,
it means that you meet the parents, you know the parents,
oh, okay.
they know you. In fact, with the parents chose us.
Hmm.
We put together a profile and there's a group over in the East Bay who Mary happened to know the executive director, and we put our profiles and stuff in a book that prospective mothers look through, and we get interviewed by
Hmm.
the parents of the baby, and they choose us,
Interesting.
right? And so it's a very different model.
Yeah.
That was the second one. The first one was more conventional, but there was a private network that it took us about a year to get into.
Uh-huh.
Um, but there was an attorney in Oklahoma and an attorney in California who arranged adoptions, and the attorney in California was the guy who wrote the California adoption laws. So
Wow.
it was a very professional thing, but again, there's a lot of misconceptions and a lot of fear and a lot of sort of inflammatory stuff around private adoptions. So it was done very low key and quietly.
Hmm.
Um,
Fascinating.
so anyway, yeah, we adopted both of our boys.
And now have you got grandkids or?
Nope, don't have grandkids. Both guys are, for various reasons, we haven't done that model yet. My one son, Xander, just moved to the Big Island.
Mm.
He's a carpenter. He's living over there. My other son, Andrew's living in Mountain View. He's an electrical engineer, and he uh, designs and tests surgical robots.
Oh.
So he's kind of right in the front end of robotics and stuff like that. And that has to do more with his birth parents and the genetics that he inherited from them than any particular uh, brainiac thing from me.
Uh-huh.
Hopefully, he got some good sense and some political awareness from me. But his dad was uh, one of the first billionaires, the youngest billionaire in history. He was very involved in the startup of the internet and Netscape and some of those things. He's a professor at UC Berkeley in computer science,
So
and
the
Andrew inherited his brain.
and Andrew had ongoing contact with his biologic father?
No, they know each other.
Uh-huh.
But and that was an arrangement that we made when we met uh, Eric and his then wife at the time. Is we sat down and said, okay, here's the deal. We like you guys, you like us. They picked us. We thought they were this totally hip, cool little young couple. They were on their way. He got a full ride to MIT, so they were leaving.
Uh-huh.
Um, and we said that we're adopting your baby. When you have that baby, we're not adopting you.
Uh,
This is not going to be an extended, and they felt the same way. So
mhm.
we stayed in contact over the years. Andrews uh, met both of his when he was older. He met both his birth dad and his birth mom.
Uh-huh.
Um, so but in terms of an ongoing relationship, no.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And,
Uh,
and that was the thing about, yeah, it could be complicated and confusing. But that was the thing is like, we're all grown-ups here. We're taking responsibility for what we're doing.
mhm.
We could have arranged it differently if we wanted to.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Now, when did you move to Hawaii? Were the kids little
The
or?
kids were 3 and 5 years old when we
Uh-huh.
left Mill Valley. We had a house in Mill Valley, and we bought a little shack on a hillside, did a major renovation to it. Um, I mean, big renovation. I mean, I was a contractor. I can do that stuff,
Yeah.
right? Um, and and then it was in the early '80s when there was blood in the streets in the construction industry, and the economy crashed. Um, and it's like we need to get out of here. Um, that was the late '80s actually, and then anyway. So yeah, we ended up here after Hurricane Iniki. We moved here. We'd been here a couple of times on vacations, and had we were young and thinking, oh, we're going to have a house in Hawaii and a house in Mill Valley, and
Yeah.
all that stuff. Um, uh, this would be a great place. Kauai would be a great place to raise kids.
Hmm.
They're in nature. It's safe. There's at gatherings we'd go to, there'd be adults, and then there'd be this swarm of kids that would fly through the adults like a flock of birds or something, squealing and yelling, and then they disappear.
Yeah.
And they were having a great time and they're safe, and everybody's kind of watching over them. We said, this is the way we want to raise our kids.
And from
So we moved here, and yeah,
so where did you first land in Kauai?
in Princeville, actually. Well,
Which,
actually, we very, very first landed out in Hyena, but we got out of there pretty quickly because it was after the hurricane. Housing was hard to find, was expensive. We were paying vacation rental rates just to have a place to stay, and then we found a place in Princeville to rent for quite a while.
well, Princeville was pretty small then, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a lot less
Yeah,
dense. Yeah. I mean, the island's changed. It's densified
for sure.
hugely since we moved here.
So wrapping up here with what other significant life transitions, chapters in your unfolding journey you want to cover, since I don't know any of it.
Well, I mean, actually reconnecting with you, however we did that, I was hoping we would figure it out as the conversation progressed here. It would spark our memories and trigger something, but so far no. But after the interview is over, we'll remember.
Yeah.
Um, uh, but really, reconnecting with you reminds me of a whole chapter of life. I mean, really, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, because I moved in such a very different direction, even though I felt like I kept the temperament and maybe a sensitivity to people that I was honing for professional purposes. In my 20s, in my early 30s, when I went to the Wellness Resource Center, I was going to be a therapist. I
Hmm.
wanted to be the world's greatest therapist. I wanted to be a master of, Gestalt and hypnosis and TA and every other thing that was out there. And there were a lot of them out there at the
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
right? I mean, Virginia Satir and, um,
Uh,
right? I mean, there was just so much going on, and it's still going on. I mean, people are Rolfing was happening. I
Right.
mean, I worked with Judith Aston a little bit, who
Uh,
was also working in that same building where the
right.
Wellness Resource Center was, right? She was doing Aston patterning.
Which is a takeoff on Rolf's work. Yeah.
Well, actually, it was a refinement
Yeah.
because people were noticing that you can get Rolfed and
But
get
then,
structurally realigned,
but then
and it's
what?
beautiful, but it doesn't stay. It
Yeah.
doesn't stick. Your old movement patterns,
Yeah.
you lose it. And so she came in with her patterning thing to basically, I would say it was sort of new age physical therapy
Mhm.
as an analogous thing, because she would say, okay, now you've been Rolfed, here's how you need to move to maintain that. Your automatic movement is to do this,
Mhm.
but now you're pushing yourself back in the wrong direction. So she would deliberately, systematically help people, again, all under the umbrella of take responsibility for your own health and for what you're doing. We can give you some new information, we can give you some new ideas about how to take care of yourself, but you have to do it.
Mm.
That's the work. And
Yep.
that's why it's a hard sell, because you actually have to change on a daily, moment to moment basis. Holy smokes. Right. And that's a revolutionary idea. And to me, that's what the Wellness Resource Center represented. And it was an idea whose time had come.
Yeah,
It's still relevant.
you're doing a
It's been
fabulous
diluted. It's been diluted. It's been monetized. It's been disfigured. But I think the fundamental truth is still golden.
yeah. Halbert Dunn, if I go back and look at sections of his book, it's I saw one on used on Amazon for $4,000. I paid $2 for my copy. But there was one for $40 a few weeks ago, but there's a free PDF that RMIT University
What's the book?
High Level Wellness. Uh,
Oh, yeah.
so when I would go into that book, it's like we haven't begun to get close to what he envisioned in the 50s. So we got a ways to go, but
Yeah. I
beautiful
actually,
summary,
speaking
Bill.
of books, I still have a copy of the wellness workbook when it was in a brownish kind of binder,
Three ring binder. Yep, yep,
the three-ring binder. I still have one of those.
yep. I got a couple of them parked around here.
Yeah, yeah.
So, well, this has been a delight, Bill. I feel like we're wrapping up, and that summary you just gave was golden. Delighted. Your ability to see the big picture and to express yourself has grown even more from my having the foresight to drag you into the mess way back then.
Well, I appreciate being able to talk like this. Connecting with Mundo and Art Brownstein when you were here just
Yeah,
recently, that was so much fun for me because, in the construction world, nobody talks like this, nobody thinks like this,
yeah,
and it's still such an important part of my life.
yeah,
And to be with you guys, and those guys for whom this is their world too, it's like, oh yeah, brothers,
yeah.
you
Uh,
know. And I haven't connected with Art, but I really want to spend more time with Mundo. I didn't know him that well, but he's for me, very inspiring guy, and
I
really
got
understands this and has been living it.
yeah.
Um, in a way that I deeply respect, and I look forward to um, being able to grow that relationship. And this is all your fault. So,
Yeah, I take the blame. What a delight. I'm going to end the recording
okay.
and we can do a debrief. Uh, but thanks again, Bill Chase, for being you and coming into my life and for contributing to what I hope will be a useful historical record.
And I want to thank you, um, right back at you, because there aren't too many people that I can look at and say you changed my life.
Thank you. Great.